For more on the reopening of the Rafah crossing, we can speak to Olice McTernan, the co-founder and director of conflict resolution charity Forward Thinking. He joins us by phone. Good morning, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Good morning. Thank you.
First, just what's the latest that you've been hearing about this limited reopening? Do you know if anyone is actually going to be getting through the Rafah crossing this Sunday?
Well, I doubt it because I was in Cairo the other day and spoke with some of the refugees in Cairo from Gaza, and people didn't have much hope. That certainly people in Cairo, and I think they're up to nearly, the figure I was given, up to nearly 300,000 Gazans taking refuge in Cairo and nearby in other parts of Egypt. And they don't seem to believe that they will be allowed to pass back into Gaza.
And when you say they don't believe they'll be able to get back to Gaza, do you mean just kind of today or in the coming days or even beyond that?
I think there is a belief that Israel has a clear policy, and that is to depopulate Gaza as best it can. And one way of doing this will be to restrict numbers and also to control tightly those passing through. As we've heard, anyone wanting to get out of Gaza for medical reasons or just to have a family reunion with those in Cairo, they will have to go through strict vetting by the Israeli authorities. They'll also have to pass through Israeli-controlled territory within the Gaza Strip. Now, and that will apply also to people wanting to return. So it isn't a great sort of return to pre-October 7th, 23 conditions where there was much more freedom, and it depended on the Egyptians then who went in and who went out. I think people feel that it's like a very, very restricted passage that's being offered at present.
And you mentioned those concerns that this is meant to sort of lead to an exodus of people leaving Gaza, but not necessarily coming back, something a lot of Palestinians are worried about as part of a sort of broader Israeli policy to try and depopulate the enclave. Does that mean you think more people are going to be let out than let back in?
Yeah, I think that's the intention, because I was also in Jerusalem last week. And speaking with Israeli politicians, I think it's very clear that most of them see the solution to the region, to what they would say their security in the region, is to see Gaza being totally depopulated and actually being annexed into Israel proper. The current situation is that 58% of Gaza now is under strict military control of the Israelis. And I don't think there is any intention of giving back that land. At least I was told that would be held as a security guarantee or a way of punishment. If you attack us, we take your land. So that would mean if that status quo remains, it means that the 2.2 million people of Gaza are now going to be herded into just 42% of the previous size of the strip, and that's humanly impossible. So I think it does point to the fact that there is an intention to depopulate through these strict controls.
That also seems to go against the whole concept of phase 2 of this broader peace plan that's meant to see ultimately Hamas disarm and the Israeli army leave Gaza. Where does that leave hopes for this plan kind of coming to fruition and going forward?
Well, I think there's been many, many questions regarding the plan. Ideally, the only way to, I think, guarantee the security of Israel and peace in the region is Israeli withdrawal from Gaza totally and deoccupation of the Palestinian territory, so there can be a viable Palestinian state. That is the essential step. the plan seems to be just papering over the cracks. It's not addressing the fundamental issues that led to October 7th and, sort of the risk of an ongoing cycle of violence. I hope for the sake of the people in Gaza, the interim arrangements will work, but there's certainly not a solution to the conflict.
And I know you mentioned you were recently in Cairo and you met with the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza. That's that body of 15 Palestinian technocrats that's supposed to go in now and oversee the day-to-day governance in the territory. I just want to briefly ask you what your impressions were of that meeting and what takeaways you had from that.
Well, I think the people themselves are very good people, and they're motivated by a concern for their fellow citizens in Gaza, and I think that will be the driving force. I don't think there's any sort of ambition among them other than try and alleviate the intolerable conditions that a couple of million of their fellow Gazans are currently suffering. And I wish them well in that, and I hope that in the interim period that they can alleviate some of the current intolerable conditions in Gaza. But I don't think it's going to be in any way a long-term solution, and it's certainly not going to solve the problem. And I think they are aware of that, but they're just at the moment keen to improve the life quality of the people there and to cut on the death rate, which is daily increasing, not just from the continued bombardment and bombing by the Israelis, but also as a result of infection and untreated medical conditions. I think the death toll from this period will be enormous when we get correct figures.
We will continue to follow the reopening of the Rafah crossing and hope that it leads to at least some small benefit to some Palestinians. Olice McTernan, thank you again so much for bringing us your insight this morning. That was Olice McTernan, the co-founder and director of conflict resolution charity Forward Thinking.